Many of you know the story of Saul, who once was called Saul, becomes Paul. And it was done in such a way in which he could never turn back. You see, he knew of God, but he finally got to experience God. And when that took place, he couldn't go back. As you know, in the story of Saul's conversion to being Paul, the men on the road that was with him heard what was going on, but they couldn't see it. But Paul could. And I'm going to refer to him as Paul. And he went from there. It says that for 3 days prayed, and then what's even in some ways even harder is that Ananias then gets this call from the Lord. The Lord simply says to Ananias, "Hey, guess what?" I'm paraphrasing here, big time. But you're going to have to now go and speak to Saul, who now is Paul. He's now changed. He's no longer the same. It reminds me of a song. Different people ask me about God, and they'll say to me, "How do you know He exists? How do you know that there is a God?" And it's a simple answer, really, because the simple answer comes to back is this. There's an old, wonderful chorus of a hymn that says, "He walks with me and He talks with me along life's narrow way. He lives, salvation to impart." You ask me how I know He lives. Well, He lives within my heart, and so how could I not know that He is? Just like Ananias, when the Lord speaks, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, you know that this is the Lord. This is not of my flesh. I wouldn't think of these things. Do you think Ananias would somehow think of going over to the enemy? The one who has persecuted the church? The one who has these murderous thoughts in his head to come against the church? No. That would not be flesh that would do that. There's nothing that Ananias would gain from that. But instead, I love what Ananias did, is the fact that he went and he knew clearly that this is God, because God, through the Holy Spirit, has changed him. And so therefore, he goes to even the one that looks like the enemy, because the Lord has told him to do so. And that goes to the bigger point here. Many times I've seen, growing up in the church, those who have been a part of the church, where they love being in the sort of the celebration of the church. They love coming and once a week to the church. I'm glad they're there. It's wonderful that they're there. But you see, there's a difference though when someone knows Jesus Christ. Oh, it's so deep and it's so rich. And that they're working out that relationship with the Lord. It is so rich and so powerful. It goes from just this up here, which is, it's good to know of God, but then, just like the Apostle Paul, you don't just know of God, you know God. And there's a major difference. And so when I think of those who may be just kind of filling the seats of the pews of the church, man, I'd implore you to come to know this God, to know this Jesus who has saved you through the Holy Spirit. Lord, I would just pray that we would be able to see a sweeping of the church, where the Holy Spirit would just move and move in such a way that people would surrender their very lives, because there is such a deep impact that has happened within their hearts. He lives, He lives. You ask me how I know He lives. He lives in my heart. May that be for the church. May that be then where we can see a great awakening that would happen in this country. God bless. My 2 cents.